Welcome to the WanderLearn show. I'm your host, Francis Tapon. This is an episode featuring Sym Blanchard. It's a series of episodes, in fact, that I have. If you're curious what this particular episode is about, look at the show notes. Yeah, I always document it all in there. He's a fascinating guy, always fun to talk with. He's always welcome on the show, and enjoy this particular episode with him. Welcome to the WanderLearn show. I'm your host, Francis Tapon. I'm here with Sym Blanchard, who is somebody who follows along the news quite a bit because he takes long walks in the woods and in wilderness, and he subscribes to so many different podcasts and is very well informed by lots of different sources. And so I enjoy talking with him, and also extremely well traveled, who's been to probably how many?
72 countries.
72 countries. And you happen to be 72 years old.
2 years old. That's right.
So one country per year. You just need to live to 193 years old and you'll see them all.
There you go.
And so now, obviously, neither you nor I are an expert about anything. We're just a couple of grumpy old men who are pontificating and
taking guesses.
Taking guesses of the state of the world. You did the Israeli trail.
Yes.
You came away with certain impressions. Now, you did not spend that much time in the West Bank and Gaza. But what was you look at the news, it's been, 2 years since October 7th, this killed a bunch of people, Hamas, or people, militants, killed a bunch of innocent Israelis. And 2 years later, we've managed to kill a lot more Palestinians in retribution, I suppose. What's your take on the situation there? How do you feel about the situation? Are we any closer to resolution, any closer to being better off than we were like 5 years ago?
Well, I was there about 6 months before October 7th. And there was a lot of protests there against the Netanyahu government. They were trying to change the judiciary, and he had a coalition of pretty strong right-wing people. And so there was I thought the U.S. was divided, but Israel was so divided. But they were willing to talk about it, and I really, they listened to my opinion and they gave their opinion. When I talked to people, and their saying is there's 2 Jews, 3 opinions. So it was refreshing to be able to talk about it. And they there was a sizable amount that were real kind of liberal about Palestinian issue and wanting to give the 2-state solution, and that the people told me that all kind of disappeared when they had the Intifada.
The second Intifada.
Yeah, second Intifada, where there's bombings on buses and stuff. And I saw a few takedowns of, army people take down some Palestinians and haul them away, because I don't know what they did, whether they, I don't know. But there was a few incidents, and they had a lot of surveillance, and there's a lot of jets flying overhead, But I don't know. I just last week I did a hike with an ex army officer with the Israeli defense defense group. He was an army officer, and he doesn't have any hope at all for a reconciliation. To leave this state of war. So I don't know. It didn't look too good, and the poor Palestinians and the Gazans, they have a really crappy, the Hamas people, but I don't know. It looked like Hamas has been pretty much decimated, and Hezbollah's decimated, and maybe the Houthis might be on the back foot, and hopefully Iran comes to a deal with Trump. I'm hoping that happens, but and that could be. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I don't know enough about the situation, or I have not visited the region either, so it's kind of hard to say. I do know that, like so many of these issues, I always find it fascinating that whenever you talk to, let's say, an Israeli or a Palestinian, if you ask them to look at the Tutsis and the Hutus, they'll come up with a very kind of even-keeled response.
I know.
If you ask them to just look at the situation in Ukraine and Russia, even-keeled response. You talk about the Congolese war that's going on there, or the civil war going on in Sudan. All these Israelis and Palestinians will give you very kind of even keel, cold hard analysis, not heavily biased. But when it comes to their situation,
that's interesting.
All objectivity goes out the window.
Yeah,
But our situation is totally different. We're totally right, and the other guy's totally wrong. Like completely black and white. All sense of gray has been forgotten. But boy, are they good at analyzing, let's say, Japan's grievances against China and vice versa. No problem dealing with that. But when it comes with their own issues, and it's the same thing, So to me, it is kind of fascinating how we are very good at being relatively objective and fair and judicious when evaluating some foreign argument and listening to both sides and trying to see. But when it comes to their grievance, we're fucking horrible.
Yeah, that's so true.
And so remember that next time you get in an argument with your spouse, when you get in an argument with somebody who's on the other side of the political spectrum as you, or whenever you do this kind of us versus them, when you're dealing, let's say, any conflict, and certainly geopolitical big conflict like that, there's always two sides to a coin.
Yeah, there are.
And you just do your best to see the other side. Yeah. And it's remarkable to me how people are incapable. I'll give you more close to home, since you and I are both U.S. citizens. January 6th riots. It's either like one side or the other. Most people just can't see like that, any kind of nuance in that thing. Like to understand that maybe it was just a protest. Oh, no, it was an insurrection or whatever. I was talking to somebody who was adamant that the election was stolen. He was pardoned, actually, by Trump. He showed me his Trump pardon.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
But he was utterly adamant that the election had been stolen and just refused to see any other thing. And meanwhile, I'll talk to my very liberal friends who think that event was like the worst thing in the history of the United States, aside from the revolution against the British. I mean, it's like, this is like such a big deal. Like, you know what? I think it's because maybe my mom's from Chile, my father's French, and I was U.S. citizen as well. All these different, I grew up, I just end up trying to see as many perspectives as possible. I'm not perfect, but I just wish more people would stop and try to like really, truly understand the other side.
Yeah. I have a friend that I've known since kindergarten, and he went to the insurrection, and he left just before the violence broke out. But he was convinced the election was stolen, and he was there to try and put things right.
Yeah.
And but after, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many people still feel it was stolen. And if Trump would have lost this time, would it have been stolen? I mean, the only reason that the elections were valid is because he won. So it's like, okay. I mean, that kind of tells you something.
Right.
He's not protesting that.
Yeah, he's not protesting that. What about Ukraine?
Yeah, it's kind of sad that, I mean, I went and helped out the refugees going across, and, Russia started the war. It wasn't Ukraine who started it. And it's sad that the United States is taking a stance that Ukraine is to blame for that. And, that aggression, it's just sad to see that. How
is it going to end?
Well, I kind of think that Ukraine's going to have to give up property, and probably Crimea and the Donetsk and the other, unfortunately. But I would hope that they get security guarantees, and I would say NATO, but that probably won't happen. But and I think Europe's gonna get together and support Ukraine, and Ukraine's got a really good defense industry going, with all their drones that they make and stuff. So, I don't know.
The demographics are against everybody in Europe, including Ukraine and Russia.
How's that?
In the sense that their fertility rate is like 1.2 and at 1.3. I mean, so all these European nations are just, they don't have the youth. to replenish the military of all these nations, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a great thing, because all of a sudden, when you have very few youth, you can't even fight a war.
Yeah. Well, what's puzzling to me is Ukraine, their draft age is 35 and above.
I think they lowered it.
They lowered it a little bit, but we start at 18. We go 18. That's when they're stupid enough to charge.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised they haven't pulled more of that in. Of course, they don't let any of the males leave.
Right, officially.
To fight. But
so, how do you think in 2026 we will have peace?
I think there's a chance.
Okay, what about Palestine and Gaza, Israel? 2026 peace?
I think I think peace is, as far as Israel occupying Gaza and keeping the pressure on Hamas, that kind of peace. But I don't see a second state yet. How about yourself?
Yeah, I don't see that being resolved either. But I'm a big believer in surprises in history, and like we've talked about before, which is 5 years before the Berlin Wall went down, nobody saw it coming,
okay.
and all of a sudden Germany united, and nobody saw that coming, and communism collapsed worldwide in just a span of a couple of years.
Yeah, that was amazing.
It was an amazing time period to be alive and to witness that. And it just is indicative of how fast things can change globally. And so, to me, never say never.
Yeah, I was a big naysayer against Reagan, and kind of critical. I thought he was going to start World War III, and he was very belligerent towards the Soviets, but it turned out to be a good strategy. And
again, we don't know 100% that was it because of Reagan's aggressiveness or despite it, or we don't really know, because there's no parallel universe. But it certainly it turned out well, and it's kind of the same thing with a lot of people thought that Donald Trump would get us into World War III when he got elected in 2016, and 2020 came along, and we still were not in World War III. In fact. There's more people who died under Barack Obama's tenure than they did under Donald Trump's tenure. I'm not a big fan of Trump. I never voted for him, but facts are facts. And it's interesting whether or not, despite all his bravado and all this kind of stuff, you get the impression that actually he doesn't really like war. He doesn't really pick on fights. He'll throw a few missiles at the Houthis. He'll bluster around Taiwan or whatever, but so far, surprisingly, and it surprises me too, that Trump is actually much more of a pacifist than some of his predecessors, Democratic predecessors. He wants to end the war in Ukraine, and the Democrats were much more interested in prosecuting that war and continuing to supply weapons and stretching out the fight and draining Russia of their resources and keeping up the fight. But it's interesting that crazy, wild Donald Trump might be more of a, peace bringer than anybody else.
He might be. What kind of pressure can he put on Russia besides more sanctions? Is he going to try and he's not going to drop a bomb because he's not that kind of a president or person.
We don't know.
And maybe he does. Yeah, he might. But
that's his gift, is that you don't really know what the hell he's going to do.
That is so true. His son-in-law said, he's really unpredictable. I go, oh, yeah, that's a good thing, I guess.
Good and bad, which brings us to tariffs, which are as unpredictable as tariffs. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a big, big, big mistake. I'm a globalist, and I like free trade, and I like the low prices at Walmart and Home Depot. If you look at the stuff and where it comes from, was just amazed at the low prices that are at Walmart, and it's all from China or Vietnam or Indonesia, and you put tariffs on that, and it protects our people here, but that's those people.
It depends on how you define protects.
Yeah.
If you're poor, it may not protect you, because all of a sudden the shit that you buy is more expensive. All of a sudden I gotta spend $20 on a t-shirt. I don't know how that protects the person who's poor.
No, it protects the people who make the t-shirts, in America. But it penalizes everybody else, especially the poor. And so inflation, I would think, is going to go up. And the corruption that you see from people trying to negotiate those tariffs, are god awful. I try to read The Economist every week, all the way through, and they were founded on protests against the Corn Laws in 1830s, and those were protectionist type things, and they're just totally against any kind of protection. It just makes our economy weak, and we have to pay more, and it screws up the other countries. I mean, I think you mentioned before, stock market's way down, the dollar's down, our GDP's dropped because of the stuff that Trump's doing.
Are we going to be in a recession by the year 2026?
I bet it'll be 2025.
2025.
The way things are going.
Yeah, that's what I predicted at the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
Okay. In my annual predictions, I always said, stock market, crypto, everything will be down. Recession will be in this year by September, October.
Because of Trump, or just?
No, I said it regardless whether Trump or Kamala Harris was going to be in power. It didn't matter.
Okay.
Either way, there was the inverted yield curve that drew my attention. That has been the most reliable predictor of recessions. That when the inverted yield curve reinverts, like uninverts, then inevitably a recession follows immediately to as much as 2 years later.
And that's where the interest rates for a 30-year Treasury is less than the.
That's when it's inverted. That's when it's inverted. Yeah. In other words, normally the 30-year interest rate should be higher. Normally, higher than let's say 1 year. T-bill, but when it's opposite of that, which is rare, that forecasts that trouble is up ahead.
Yeah.
And that has been an infallible indicator. It's never been wrong. And so to me, I was like, well, it uninverted in September of 2024. So that means the recession could come somewhere in 2025, but as late as September of 2026.
Wow.
As late as September 2026 is when we would be due. But I just thought, because it was so deeply inverted, because that's the other thing, is that what made it remarkable. It was the deepest inversion since the Great Depression, or maybe even before the Great Depression. I mean, it was a really deep, long inversion. So that kind of makes me think that the recession will be really hard and rough. But maybe I'm deluded in that notion, and we'll find out if I'm right.
Yeah, the Treasury auction apparently is people aren't buying treasuries. I mean, the yields are way up, because people don't want to buy treasuries anymore. We're the reserve currency at the moment, but people don't, and usually they go to, the safe haven is usually treasuries. Buy those to get a good, 3% or 4% yield. And, with the erratic, the thing with Trump, and he's talking about maybe the Federal Reserve Chairman trying to oust him and trying to, manipulate things. People are losing trust in the consistency of America, which we had before. And I'm just concerned that our dominance financially might be going by the wayside.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a sad thing to watch. But it's inevitable, right? I mean, all empires fall.
Yeah.
It may not happen in our lifetime, but if you believe Ray Dalio, I don't know if you follow him.
Yeah. He was saying that I guess our deficit's 7% of our GDP, and he figures unless we can get it down to 3%, we're kind of screwed. So that sounds like a good goal, 3%.
Yeah. What about crypto?
I'm totally, I'm honestly, totally against it, but I've been wrong so much.
And your son has made out like a bandit.
Yeah, he just sold a whole bunch for $100,000 a piece to buy a house. Yeah.
Which he may regret when Bitcoin's $1 million.
Yeah.
A coin.
Yeah, well, he bought he sold a Game Boy. He had his Game Boy, and he sold it for 9 Bitcoins, which are worth about $900,000 now. So, and he mined, he had a couple computers that he was running.
Why are you so against crypto?
I just don't see the value behind it. That, the US dollar, we've got an army, we've got lots of resources, and I just feel more comfortable, although less comfortable recently. But crypto, to me, it's just kind of a made up thing.
And the US dollar is not made up?
No, you've got an army behind it. You've got.
But I mean, it's just a figment of our imagination. I mean, we're just.
It is, but
it's just a collective delusion.
When you get $10, you're going to say, okay, will the government, am I going to get something for this? Can I trade this in and get something? From just that the U.S. has, now if it were, Argentina, forget it. It's,
because the collective delusion in Argentina no longer believes, it's collapsed, that delusion. But all fiat currency is a delusion. I mean, like Yuval Harari, have you heard him talk about money?
Yeah.
And do you remember what he said? It's like, if you give like a dollar bill to a monkey, it'll be like, what's this? I'd rather have a bunch of bananas.
Yeah.
Bananas are a real thing. That's a real thing. Dollars, what the fuck can I do with the dollar?
You look at the history of the dollar, and has it upheld its, up until recently, it's upheld its value.
It's never upheld its value. It's gone down since George Washington, just straight down. It's lost its value consistently, Sym.
You think it's
one penny was worth $1 today. One penny in George Washington's time. Like you can even see, like when you see the old magazines and things that they were selling at in the Gold Rush or whatever. It's like, buy a pair of pants for like 20 cents or whatever, $1. Like, it meant something back then. Nowadays, $1 is worthless.
Well, so it's not worthless.
No, but in other words, inflation has whittled away its value.
But inflation, until recently, before it was like, 1 or 2%.
But in the 70s, it was much higher.
Yeah, but it was for a short period of time.
Right, but you remember that. But it's always been whatever it is. It's inflation.
But you go to Argentina and it was like 1,400%.
Sure, and Zimbabwe is even worse.
Yeah. And so you don't value those as much. You're not going to invest in that, but you're going to invest in $1 because it only goes down, 1 or 2%, 3%, over the last 100 years. I mean, it does go down.
No, you're talking about annually going down.
Yeah, annually. Yeah.
Which
so
adds up.
Yeah, it adds up, but you compare it to the other, euros or the pound.
This whole discussion is about crypto. Like, why do you have something against crypto? And you're in love with the dollar, which is a currency that just devalues every sinle year. Yeah, why is that a good thing?
Yeah, but it's backed up by the government.
Who cares? What? So was the German Deutschmark. It was backed up by its German government, and then it got hyperinflated away.
Yeah.
The Zimbabwe dollar was backed up by its military. It went away. Argentina, same thing. Venezuela, same thing. Like lots of currencies. The British pound sterling was backed by the British government, after World War II, and then it's lost its reserve status.
That was because of World War II and World War I.
Okay, fine.
They had to pay a whole bunch to the U.S. And Germany, they lost all sorts of money because of World War I and World War II. And Zimbabwe, same.
Right. And so what endured all these up and down of these empires that have risen and fallen since gold? Gold has been the few commodities that has reliably appreciated over the centuries.
So why not buy gold instead of crypto?
It's a great idea. You can buy gold, but crypto, specifically Bitcoin, is digital gold.
It's not digital. There's no gold. You can't use it to make jewelry or anything.
It's energy, dude. It's energy. It's the most fundamental currency of the universe is energy. That is, if you think about the universe of what is, like when a saber-toothed tiger or any tiger eats another animal, they're consuming energy.
Right.
That's the most, when we consume plants, it's energy.
So if I buy a Bitcoin, can I plug it into my toaster and get toast?
Indirectly, yes, by spending that Bitcoin for energy. You can say, okay, I want to spend this thing, just like your son. He's buying a house with his Bitcoin. The house is made of energy. It's just like that's what Bitcoin is. It's just Arthur C. Clarke made many predictions. And one of the things he said is that by the year 2080, I think it was, I could be wrong, that we will have a universal currency based on energy. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
Arthur C. Clarke was no dum-dum. And he predicted that the most fundamental, basic currency of the universe will be energy, which makes a ton of sense.
So any other cryptocurrencies that aren't based on energy, on mining, You think those are not good? Even though a lot of people believe in them? And
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm not a big, what's called a Bitcoin maximalist, is somebody who just believes Bitcoin is going to be the only cryptocurrency ever and the only one worth investing in or considering taking seriously.
Right.
Because one of the problems with Bitcoin is that it's not programmable, so it's less flexible. It's kind of like, it's like a really good knife as opposed to a Swiss Army knife that has many different options, many different flavors, and many different possibilities. It's not programmable, or not very programmable. But I think Bitcoin has a much better logic behind it, because it is just purely depends on using a tight correlation between energy, production, and its existence. And when you decouple that, and what's called proof of stake versus Bitcoin, which is proof of work. Proof of work requires energy. Proof of work. You have to prove that you've put in the computational power. In order to have it traded and to keep the ledger up to date. With the other networks, which are proof of stake related, they take far less energy. But like you say, it's not as pure, I would say, as a concept as Bitcoin is. And so I think Bitcoin has, I think the longevity, not to mention the fact that it's got the Immaculate Conception. It's the first. It was not only that, but the way it was conceived without, the founder being Satoshi Nakamoto, not known. There's no venture capital behind it. It was just completely organic.
Yeah.
And to me, its origin story is so unique.
Yeah.
Versus all the other cryptocurrencies that are out there don't have such a remarkable origin story. So for many reasons, I think Bitcoin has certain staying power, and energy will. I think we're going back to the decline of the dollar. There's a small chance, I would give it less than 5%, that the world will say, okay, the dollar as a reserve currency sucks. It's broken.
But what do you replace it with?
Exactly. And so one alternative is a basket of currencies, which is one idea. Number two, go back to gold, which worked for many decades. But three could be Bitcoin. And that would, if you want to talk about catapulting the price of Bitcoin, if all of a sudden you make that the kind of the world reserve currency, that would really be a game changer. But anyway. So.
Yeah, my concern also is the registry that they have, that, supposedly it's foolproof, but I don't know. It seems like if you get over, over 50% of the people who own can have a power over it, and then it seems like, well, you just get over 50% and then you take everything.
Right. So it's not that simple. Basically, what it means is that when you have what's over 50% control over the energy, then you can do an attack on future transactions. You can't change the past. So, for example, if you've got 3 Bitcoins in your wallet, I can't take that Bitcoin out of your wallet. I can just manipulate and come up with new transactions in the future. So I can't change the past. I can only change the future. But the past is like hardened into Bitcoin's history because of the ledger. The ledger doesn't change. There's thousands, if not more than thousands of copies of that ledger, and it's being kept up to date every 10 minutes. So, and more importantly, and here's the thing, the game theory behind it, there's no real incentive as to why they would change the ledger. Like if all of a sudden, let's say, Sym, you're a trillionaire, and you could theoretically get control of the Bitcoin network, and then you're going to manipulate it to create more Bitcoins for yourself, for example, right? And you're say, okay, I'm going to create out of thin air, 10 million Bitcoins just for me. What's going to happen to the price of Bitcoin?
Yeah, go down.
Exactly. Not just go down, fucking collapse, dude.
Yeah.
It's just going to go down. And now all of a sudden you've spent all your trillions of dollars to take control over this network, and now you just shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
So it's highly unlikely that even if a set of actors have enough resources to take control over the Bitcoin network, the idea that they would then sabotage it is kind of contradictory. It's unlikely that they would want to do that. it's unless they're a state actor,
Yeah.
like they're the United States and they're determined to like destroy the Bitcoin network, then they might spend trillions of dollars to take control over it, just to sabotage it and get rid of it. Maybe. I mean, but in the end, the ledger will be frozen in time from the moment that the United States took such an attack. And they can say, okay, now we're going to create a fork. That was the old Bitcoin. And we're gonna let the government run away with that stupid version where they've taken over control. We're gonna take up a brand new network, and we're gonna pick up history from right before that attack, and then continue on its merry way.
Wow.
So I don't, I'm not such a crazy nuthead about Bitcoin to think that it's a panacea. I got so many people who talk about Bitcoin like it's going to solve all these problems. And they have the saying like, Bitcoin solves this, Bitcoin solves this, Bitcoin solves this, like poverty, hunger, alleviation, like world peace. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I think Bitcoin is just another technology, but it's, moving toward you're a globalist. And you should therefore like a neutral currency that no government controls, that's not easily manipulated, that you don't have a Federal Reserve that can just decide to print more, issue more currency just because we decide to start a war. And that's why some people think it's going to bring world peace, because whenever a nation wants to go to war, what does it do? It just issues out more bonds, prints out more currency. But if they can't just do that, they actually have to acquire Bitcoin, they have to acquire resources, they got to use it. Then you're less incentivized to like go beat up on your neighbor because it's going to require a tremendous amount of resources that you just can't print out of thin air. You've got to first acquire the Bitcoin, which is the universal currency, to then wage that war. And you're going to think twice before doing that. So interesting arguments, but the bottom line is I do think that, you have things like quantum computing that might pose a threat, but ultimately you can, there's enough smart people who are going to do what's called quantum protection to protect us against the quantum threats. So anyway, I think here's, I guess my bottom line is that I don't think Bitcoin is some panacea that's going to solve all the world, manna from heaven and stuff like that some real big fans like to believe in. But I do think you're an idiot if you don't at least pay attention and learn about it, educate yourself, and maybe get like 1% of your net worth tied up to Bitcoin, or at least buy a small stash of it, whether it's $500 or whatever, just to like, Cynthia Loomis, I think is her name. Loomis is her last name. I can't remember if it's Cynthia. She's a senator, I think from Wyoming. And, she said that when she first started hearing about Bitcoin in the mid, like around 2014, I think it was 2015, she bought a little bit, because when you buy a little bit, then all of a sudden you kind of like, it forces you to have to understand this thing. And from then on, it's easier to understand something if you are kind of an owner of it, because all of a sudden you have something vested in it. But if you don't own a little tiny bit of it, even if it's just a couple $100, you're even more likely to just denigrate it, poo-poo it, throw salt on it and say, screw it, it's a horrible thing, it's a Ponzi scheme or whatever it is. And you don't want to put the mental effort to try to understand it.
You got a good point. Yeah. I just, at my age, I'm 72, you want to get something stable. And so you're looking for a good cash flow. And I mean, if you're young, that's a good thing. My son, made out very well, and yourself too. But at my age, to do something risky, even stock market or bonds, it can be risky.
So you still have a annuity, I think?
Yeah, got an annuity, got a pension, and got Social Security.
Do you know anybody who's done a reverse mortgage?
No, but it could be worthwhile rather than selling your home. But
you know how they work?
Yeah. You let's see. Yeah, they pretty much give you a mortgage and give you the cash, and then when you die, they get the property. And it depends how much they give you, and actually they give you a certain amount each month for the rest of your life. Right. And it's kind of an insurance policy. Right. And then you get to keep your home. But you have to watch the rate, that they charge. I
remember talking to you about your annuity, because I remember you decided not to get an inflation-adjusted annuity. Do you have any regrets of not having done that?
I did get, they kind of require you. So I got it's a 3%. it's not based on actual inflation, so it's 3%. So it's been, I'm pretty happy with it. It was, for a few months, wasn't performing as well, but it gave me 6% for like 40 years, which is, you can't get that with the money market and with the stock market, you've kind of, you did really well for a while, but then now you're not doing so well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So far I'm really happy with it.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, what would screw you is if the inflation starts going above 10%, double-digit inflation.
Yeah, that would screw me. Yeah. It would screw a lot of people. Right. Now, Social Security goes up with inflation, so that's good, but pension does not.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sym, always a pleasure talking with you. People can follow you on Sym Blanchard on your Facebook?
Yeah, Facebook. I post maybe every 3 days.
And then Instagram too?
It sometimes so it shows up in Instagram.
I'll put a link in the show notes.
Perfect.
Awesome seeing you.
Okay, super.
Yeah. And that ends this episode of the WanderLearn podcast, where we explore travel, technology, and transformation. If you'd like to see the show notes with links to what we've talked about, go to WanderLearn.com and click on this episode. If you'd like to connect with me, just remember Tapon. That's my first initial and my last name. Tapon is always my social media username. My website is ftapon.com. Do you want to leave me an anonymous voicemail where you can make a comment or ask a question? Then go to speakpipe.com/ftapon. Furthermore, if you'd like to get rewarded for supporting my projects, then go to patreon.com/ftapon. That's where you can pick up some remarkable rewards for as little as $2 a month. Now, 5 quick favors. Number 1, subscribe to the WanderLearn podcast. 2, download it. 3, share it. 4, review it. And 5, sign up for my newsletter at WanderLearn.com. Our theme music was composed by Eric Stratman. This is Francis Tapon, encouraging you to wander and learn.